how is money really going to move around the world in the future? I mean, this isn't some abstract question just for economists, right?
Yeah.
It impacts every single one of us.
It absolutely does.
Whether you're, a small business trying to manage international invoices, or maybe you're just an individual sending money home to family overseas. Think about all that friction involved currently. The steps, the waiting, the hidden costs. It's often just a massive headache.
It really is. The current global financial system, I mean, it's foundational, sure, but it's definitely showing its age in a big way.
Right.
And that's exactly why today we're diving deep into XRP. It's a digital asset with a pretty bold ambition to fundamentally redefine global payments.
Yeah, and really challenge the system that's been dominant for decades. SWIFT.
Exactly.
SWIFT.
So welcome everyone to the deep dive. Our mission today is, well, to sift through all our sources. We've got articles, research, our own notes, and give you a really clear, comprehensive picture of XRP.
Yeah, we want to unpack the technology, its journey through those legal battles, which were significant.
Oh, absolutely. And also its growing adoption by some major players and, where it might be headed next.
So you're going to walk away with a real understanding of why this particular digital asset isn't just like making noise, but genuinely shaking up the financial world. So yeah, buckle up.
Okay, so to really get XRP, we first need to understand the problem it's trying to solve.
Right, the context.
Exactly. The current backbone for global finance, that's largely the SWIFT system, Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication. Basically, it's the messaging network banks use for cross-border transactions.
But it gets a lot of criticism, doesn't it?
It does. Widely criticized, it's slow, it's expensive, and frankly, it's kind of outdated technology.
And slow really means slow here. We're talking cross-border settlements that can take, up to 5 days?
Up to 5 days, yeah.
5 days. And a single SWIFT transaction that can cost as much as $50.
It can, yeah. Up to $50. Now, what's the real impact of that kind of inefficiency? What does that actually mean for a business operating globally or, someone just sending money home?
That's a great point because the impact is huge, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not just the money and the time.
Not at all. It's incredibly complex, too. The system relies on this, convoluted network of intermediary banks.
Right, the correspondent banks.
Exactly, which leads to manual settlements. And that means you often lack transparency. You don't really know where your payment is at any given moment or what the true costs are until it finally lands.
Which for a business that ties up capital, creates reconciliation nightmares, slows down entire supply chains, potentially.
Absolutely. And for an individual, it's just frustrating and expensive.
And it's not like it's bulletproof secure either, right?
Right.
That centralized model has shown vulnerabilities. I remember reading about the Bangladesh bank hack, $81 million back in 2016.
A huge incident.
That's a staggering amount. It just highlights the risks in a centralized system that maybe hasn't kept pace with modern threats.
Exactly. And SWIFT has tried to upgrade, with things like ISO 2022 and GPI. Those are technical standards and enhanced payment services.
Like sort of bolt-on improvements.
Yeah, but they're largely seen as, let's say, temporary fixes, band-aids on a crumbling system rather than a fundamental shift.
Okay.
And that's precisely where XRP and the XRP ledger, the XRPL, come in. It's not just presented as an upgrade, it's described as a paradigm shift, really designed for a digital future.
And the speed difference is just, wow, 3 to 5 seconds for a transaction. That's almost like sending an email with money attached, isn't it?
Pretty much.
Can you help us visualize what that instantaneous movement of value actually means for businesses, for individuals?
Yeah, it means moving value at the speed of the internet, literally. Imagine a world where payments are as instant as sending a text message.
Right.
For businesses, this radically improved cash flow. It allows for real-time inventory management, enables entirely new business models, potentially.
And for individuals, remittances.
Remittances could arrive in seconds. Think about emergencies or just daily living for families relying on that support from abroad. It makes a huge difference.
And it's not just fast, it's incredibly cheap too.
Oh, yeah. The cost efficiency is remarkable. We're talking about a tiny fraction of a cent, like 0.0022s per transaction.
Wow.
For businesses dealing with high volumes. That's just transformational savings.
What's also fascinating is how it tackles liquidity. You mentioned XRP is decentralized and acts as a bridge between fiat currencies, enabling those near-instant settlements without needing all those intermediaries.
Exactly. And that boosts liquidity. It frees up capital that would otherwise be locked in dormant accounts under SWIFT, those Nostro Vostro accounts we mentioned.
Right, money just sitting there waiting.
Billions of dollars are essentially frozen globally, just waiting for settlements to clear through the old system. XRP's approach isn't just about faster payments. It's about unlocking that massive global capital.
Turning dead money into instantly usable funds. That's a profound efficiency gain for financial institutions.
Absolutely. And then there's scalability. The XRP ledger can handle 1,500 transactions per second, TPS.
Okay, put that in perspective for us. Compared to, say, Bitcoin or Ethereum.
Right. Bitcoin typically handles around, 7 TPS? Ethereum manages maybe 30 TPS, even after its upgrade, so 1,500. XRP is clearly built for volume.
So on paper, it sounds incredibly robust, fast, cheap, scalable. But we also touched on the idea that critics sometimes raise concerns about XRP's centralization, maybe linked to Ripple Labs. How does that square with the idea of it being decentralized and battle-tested?
Yeah, that's a fair question, and it gets into the nuances of blockchain tech. While Ripple Labs definitely plays a significant role in developing the XRPL and, yes, holds a large amount of XRP.
Which is a point of contention for some.
It is. But the network itself is validated by independent nodes spread across the globe. The battle-tested part comes from its consistent performance and security track record in actual, real-world financial applications. It's shown reliability under pressure, even with those centralization critiques hanging around.
And it's energy efficient too, right?
No.
Compared to Bitcoin.
Oh, massively. It uses significantly less electricity, they say, about as much as it costs to run an email server.
Yeah.
That's a huge environmental plus compared to proof-of-work systems like Bitcoin.
Okay, so at its core, XRP is designed as a bridge currency for cross-border payments. And Ripple, the company, builds products like RippleNet and on-demand liquidity, or ODL, that use XRP to streamline things, getting rid of those pre-funded Nostro Vostro accounts.
Exactly. Those accounts tie up billions globally. Eliminating them is a major efficiency driver for banks. This is really where the rubber meets the road in terms of practical application.
Right. And that brings us neatly to the major milestones that have really pushed XRP forward, especially its journey through some very public regulatory hurdles.
Yes, the legal saga.
And consequently, its growing institutional adoption.
Absolutely.
So first up, the big one, the end of the SEC lawsuit. That was this massive cloud hanging over XRP for years, wasn't it?
It really was a nearly 4-year legal battle. The SEC, the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, sued Ripple back in December 2020.
Accusing them of what exactly?
Accusing Ripple of conducting unregistered security sales through XRP. The whole crypto market was watching this one very closely.
And the resolution finally came when? March 2025.
That's right, March 2025. The SEC officially concluded its case. Ripple agreed to a reduced settlement fine around $50 million, crucially without admitting any wrongdoing.
And that followed a really key court ruling back in July 2023, didn't it?
Yes, that was huge. The July 2023 ruling explicitly clarified that XRP tokens traded on public crypto exchanges do not count as securities under U.S. federal law.
A massive distinction. Basically saying for retail trading, it's more like a commodity.
Exactly. That ruling was a landmark. It provided badly needed regulatory clarity in the U.S., which is absolutely critical for institutional buy-in.
Interesting, though, you noted that while XRP's price jumped initially after that ruling,
It did surge, yeah.
it didn't quite sustain that momentum, falling back to fourth place in market cap by March 2025. What does that tell us?
Well, it suggests the market might have already priced in a lot of that good news, or perhaps other market factors came into play. The legal clarity was vital, but price action is always complex.
Then there was another really significant development, politically this time. March 2025, President Trump announced XRP would be one of 5 digital assets in a planned U.S. crypto strategic reserve.
Yeah, the White House published the order March 6th, 2025.
What's the actual significance of something like that, beyond just the headline?
Well, it's a powerful signal, isn't it? It's an endorsement suggesting a major shift in how a global power views these assets.
Moving beyond just speculation.
Right. It suggests government bodies are starting to see digital assets, including XRP, as potentially strategic national assets, maybe for economic stability, national security, perhaps even part of future monetary policy. It lends serious credibility and could open doors for much broader integration at a governmental level.
And this isn't just happening in isolation. We're seeing growing institutional adoption. RippleNet already has, over 300 banking partners globally?
That's the number they report, yeah. Over 300.
So can you give us some concrete examples? Who's actually using this tech? Make it tangible for us.
Sure. We're seeing major players across continents getting involved. For instance, SBI Remit in Japan uses RippleNet for real-time payments between Japan and Thailand.
Okay.
Santander, the big Spanish bank, they offer OnePay FX for international payments powered by Ripple tech.
Right, I remember hearing about that one.
We've seen American Express partner up to boost B2B cross-border payments, focusing on the US-UK corridor initially.
Even big names like JP Morgan Chase, there were reports.
Yeah, reports surfaced about JP Morgan Chase potentially accepting XRP for some payments like credit cards or mortgages and using it internally. And also names like Goldman Sachs and Deutsche Bank reportedly exploring Ripple's blockchain to improve their wire transfers.
So it feels like an ecosystem is genuinely starting to emerge here. Is the key insight less about any single partnership and more about how these connections are collectively building a new digital backbone for global finance, kind of replacing the old fragmented system piece by piece?
I think that's exactly right. The takeaway isn't just the number of partners, but the caliber and the diversity of these institutions. It signals a fundamental shift. Established finance is looking at digital assets not just as, speculative things, but as potentially crucial infrastructure.
And Japan seems to be really leading the charge.
Japan is definitely notable. There's a plan for full-scale XRP integration by the end of 2025, heavily driven by SBI Holdings and reportedly endorsed by the Bank of Japan, aiming to modernize their whole financial infrastructure.
And back in the U.S., now that the SEC cloud is lifted.
Well, Ripple President Monica Long reported increased interest from U.S.-based banks looking into integrating both XRP and also Ripple stablecoin, RLUSD. That clarity was key.
Right, let's talk about RUSD, Ripple stablecoin. Launched late 2024.
December 2024, yeah. A one-to-one USD-pegged stablecoin issued on both the XRP ledger and Ethereum.
Interesting. On Ethereum, too. And it's seen rapid growth.
It has surpassed $176 million in circulating supply within months, apparently, with a big jump in trading volume, like 319%.
How does a stablecoin like RLUSD complement XRP's main role?
It's a really powerful combination, potentially. XRP is built for that super fast value transfer and liquidity, but its price, it fluctuates.
Right, volatility.
Exactly. RLUSD provides a stable, transparent asset pegged to the dollar. It can be used for everyday transactions or as a settlement layer, offering maybe the best of both worlds, the speed and efficiency of the XRPL, but with the price stability of the US dollar. That makes it much more attractive for regular commercial use cases.
And institutional interest seems to be heating up on the investment side, too, with XRP ETF filings.
Yes, absolutely. Franklin Templeton, the huge global asset manager, filed an application in March 2025 for an XRP spot ETF.
An ETF lets people invest in XRP through traditional brokerage accounts, right, without holding the crypto directly.
Precisely. And it wasn't just Franklin Templeton. 9 other firms, including names like Bitwise and ProShares, also filed.
What does that signal? All these ETF filings.
It's a massive step towards mainstream acceptance. ETF filings suggest a maturing market. They provide regulated, accessible ways for a much broader range of investors, institutional and retail, to get exposure. It really helps legitimize the asset in the eyes of traditional finance.
And Ripple's expanding its own services, too, moving into digital asset custody.
Yeah, they filed a trademark application in February 2025 for Ripple Custody. That signals they're aiming to provide institutional-grade secure storage solutions for digital assets.
Makes sense if they want banks to use their network.
Exactly. And they also got approval early 2025 from the Dubai Financial Services Authority, the DFSA, to offer regulated crypto payment services within the Dubai International Financial Center.
Another key financial hub.
Right. These moves all point to Ripple's strategy, building out a whole ecosystem around XRP, custody, regulatory green lights in key hubs like Dubai. They're laying the groundwork to make it easier for traditional finance players to engage securely and compliantly.
And they're still doing deals, acquisitions, partnerships.
Oh, yeah. There was news about their intent to acquire a company called Hidden Road for $1.25 billion. The idea is to integrate institutional finance workflows directly onto the XRPL, plus partnerships with firms like Revolut, Zero Hash, and Unicambio. That last one created a real-time payment bridge between Portugal and Brazil using RippleNet.
Okay, so we focused a lot on XRP replacing traditional cross-border payments, but is it starting to push into even newer frontiers?
Right.
Like central bank digital currencies, CBDCs?
Absolutely. Ripple's been quite proactive there. They've been involved in CBDC pilot projects, for instance, with the Royal Monetary Authority of Bhutan and the Republic of Palau.
Interesting. So how does the XRPL fit with CBDCs?
Well, the argument is that the XRPL is well suited for issuing and managing CBDCs. especially maybe for developing countries, say in Africa or Asia, and XRP itself could potentially act as a liquidity bridge between different national digital currencies.
Making transfers between, say, a digital yuan and a digital rupee seamless.
That's the potential vision, yeah. Efficient inter-CBDC transfers.
And beyond CBDCs, what about the tech itself? The XRPL is evolving. Smart contracts.
Yes. While it's known primarily for payments, there are active efforts to add more smart contract functionality.
How are they doing that?
Two main ways. One is through an EVM-compatible sidechain. EVM means Ethereum Virtual Machine, so developers could potentially port applications built for Ethereum relatively easily onto an XRPL sidechain.
Okay, leveraging the huge Ethereum developer community.
Exactly. And the other way is something called hooks, which allows for adding smaller custom pieces of code directly into XRP transactions for more specialized logic right on the main ledger.
What could these advancements unlock? Smart contracts on XRPL.
Well, think about asset tokenization. It could open up entirely new global markets by enabling things like real estate or equities to be tokenized on the XRPL.
So you could trade a fraction of a building almost instantly.
Potentially, yeah. Or a bond. Settle it near instantly anywhere in the world. It could really democratize access to traditionally illiquid assets and just make those markets way more efficient.
Okay, so given all this expansion payments, CBDCs, smart contracts, tokenization, how does XRP really position itself compared to other major cryptos? What's its unique spot?
Well, let's compare. Take Bitcoin BTC. It's generally seen as digital gold, right? A store of value.
Right, not really for buying coffee.
Exactly. It's robust, sure, but high energy use, slow transactions over 10 minutes typically. XRP, as we said, is energy efficient, settles in seconds, much better suited for payments. They serve fundamentally different purposes in the digital economy right now.
Okay, what about Ethereum? ETH.
Ethereum is the dominant smart contract platform, the home for dApps, decentralized applications, and DeFi. It's moved to proof of stake, which helps, but it can still face network congestion and high gas fees at times.
So XRP isn't really trying to be Ethereum.
Not directly, no. XRP focuses laser sharp on payments and settlement infrastructure. It's not competing head-on in the general dApp or DeFi space. Although, interestingly, its RLUSD stablecoin is also issued on Ethereum, showing there can be complementary roles, not just competition.
And maybe compared to something like Solana, SOL, known for speed too.
Right. Solana is another high-speed blockchain aiming for dApps. But its reliability has been questioned sometimes due to network outages. And there are also some centralization concerns around its validator network. XRP's network, on the other hand, is generally seen as very reliable, battle-tested, specifically in financial use cases with those established partnerships.
So its niche is really that payments infrastructure piece.
Exactly. A very specific and absolutely massive market.
Okay, let's look down the road then. The road ahead for XRP. Huge potential, but also potential pitfalls, right?
Definitely. The potential is immense, that cross-border payments market. The total addressable market is, I've said, is something like $156 trillion annually.
Wow.
So if XRP captures even a tiny fraction of that, well, demand could skyrocket. Its model is based on utility, so the idea is organic value growth. Some even speculate it could eventually surpass Bitcoin in value if its utility truly scales globally, but that's a big if.
And analysts are putting out some pretty bold price predictions.
They are. For 2025, you see forecasts like $5 Rear 5 to $5.81 from Coinpedia. Some institutional targets are even higher. Standard Chartered reportedly predicted $5.50, and Sistine Research put out a range of $33 to $50.
$33 to $50. That's
ambitious, very ambitious. And looking even further out, you see projections for 2030 going up towards $26.50, and some wildly optimistic ones for 2050 reaching maybe $526.
Okay, need a big grain of salt with those long-term ones.
Absolutely. It's crucial to remember these are just predictions, highly dependent on market conditions, actual adoption rates, competition, many factors.
Which brings us to the risks. It's important for you, our listener, to consider the challenges too. What are some of the key risks here?
Well, one that always comes up is the reliance on Ripple Labs and the related centralization concerns.
I've touched on that.
Right. Unlike some truly decentralized projects, XRP's history and development are closely tied to Ripple, the company, and Ripple still holds a significant amount of XRP. Critics argue this gives Ripple too much influence, especially regarding the validator nodes they run or are affiliated with. It's that trade-off discussion between efficiency and pure decentralization.
And competition isn't standing still, is it?
Not at all. XRP faces stiff competition. Other blockchain payment platforms like Stellar XLM, Hedera HBAR, Algorand, Alduo, They also offer fast, low-cost solutions and are targeting similar use cases.
Even Swift isn't just rolling over.
No, even legacy systems like Swift are exploring blockchain tech themselves, trying to modernize. So the race is definitely on. It's not a guaranteed win for XRP.
Then there's the global regulatory landscape. Still patchy.
Very much so. Despite the clarity in the US now, regulations vary hugely country by country. Japan is supportive, as we mentioned. China has effectively banned crypto trading. Europe has its comprehensive MiCA framework coming into play. Any policy shift in a major economy could significantly impact adoption, for better or worse.
And finally, just the general risk of the crypto market itself.
Yeah, that's always there. XRP's price, like most altcoins, is still pretty correlated with overall crypto market trends, particularly Bitcoin's movements. Macroeconomic factors, another major exchange collapse like FTX, issues with stablecoins depegging, any of that can trigger market-wide sell-offs that would likely hit XRP too.
It doesn't exist in a vacuum.
Exactly. It's part of a larger, often volatile digital asset ecosystem.
Okay, so let's try and sum this up to briefly recap.
Yeah, XRP, with its, unique blend of speed, super low cost, and that growing list of institutional backers, it's definitely positioned as a formidable contender to really transform global payments.
It seems to be moving beyond just being another cryptocurrency.
I think so. It's aiming to be seen as essential financial infrastructure.
So wrapping up, what does all this really mean for you listening right now? Consider how a shift to faster, cheaper global payments could impact not just the big banks, but everyday things. International transactions, doing business across borders, even just sending money to a family overseas. And this raises a pretty interesting question, I think. If these systems become truly instantaneous and virtually free, what kind of new global economic models might actually emerge from that? And how could that reshape our interconnected world? Something to ponder.